Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about The African Chief, written by Sarah Wentworth Morton. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. So, this poem by Sarah Wentworth Morton is a very interesting poem. What we have here is a narrative about this African chief. So we can put into the mind this is a slave, a poem. It's a poem about slavery. And basically, this slave gets taken from Gambia. And the poem really paints a picture. Now, what's really interesting about this poem is how vivid it is. It's very vivid. It really gives us a really interesting picture of how this slave is, ripped away from, his homeland. And pretty much you can imagine how any slave, being taken from Africa during the Atlantic slave trade era. And pretty much it tells us that, for this African chief, in the poem, it's like, where were the gods of uh, this country? Where were the gods of Africa? How come they didn't help? How come they didn't stop this horror, this horrible situation that was taking place? How come there was no assistance, no help, no aid? Were the gods asleep? So the poem really goes into this kind of like begging the gods or begging gods, to help these Africans that were being taken as slaves, that were being taken, to be tortured and to be beaten and to be killed. So it really goes in deep in how the children of this slave, the people, the friends, the wife. So the poem talks about friends, the wife, siblings, brothers, family members, how they were all kind of like put underneath, oppression, and how they were just, I don't know, brutally ripped away from their homelands and, brought on these ships and thrown on these ships and chained and wrapped in chains, and how everything was taken away from them. And the poem does this in a very vivid way, giving us some very grueling details about the plight of Africans during slavery. So this particular slave, the African chief here, he endures a lot. Within the poem, there is a rebellion where he goes and kills a lot of the um, white, slave capturers or slave hunters, where he rebels and he kills a lot of them, under his rebellion. And then ultimately, what happens to him? He gets brutally murdered and killed by the people that he was trying to fight against. So the whole poem really gives us this account of the African chief being taken away from Africa, all of these horrors that are happening to his children, his posterity, his wife, friends, family members, being taken on this dark ship. The poem going into where are the gods of this country of Gambia of Africa? How come they didn't stop this from happening? Kind of like really begging the cosmos for assistance here, and ultimately how this African chief, led a rebellion, tried to fight against his oppressors, tried to escape from his oppressors, tried to beat down his oppressors, but ultimately he gets beaten down, he gets brutally, murdered and killed. And the poem pretty much leaves us off in a very sad situation where it ultimately tells us that the only relief, the only freedom for these Africans, especially the early Africans, the first Africans that were taken from Africa and put into slavery, the only freedom for those Africans was not freedom or liberty or anything like that. It was death. I mean, the only way that they could make it out, the only way that they could regain their freedom back was by dying. And especially again, the Africans that were enslaved, right before the Emancipation Proclamation, they were probably better off than any other slave that had lived before them, because yes, life after the Emancipation Proclamation was difficult, was hard, but it wasn't, slavery. This particular poem really sheds a light on the early, slave trading era, and this particular African chief, what he had to go through, being taken from Gambia, and being a part of the slave trade. Now, in terms of deeper meaning, in terms of analysis here, um, upon research for this poem, one idea is that the African chief here was taken from Gambia by the French, French slave traders, was taken to Haiti, of all places, was taken to Haiti. And in Haiti, he tried to rebel against them, tried to kill a lot of them, killed a lot of them, and then ultimately they killed him. So according to the research for this particular poem, that's one idea here, is that the African chief from Gambia to Haiti tried to rebel against the French in Haiti, and ultimately they killed him in a very brutal manner. So again, one thing with slave trade is that the Atlantic slave trade is that, well, a lot of people were displaced, a lot of people were taken to Africa from different parts of Africa, and ultimately landed, some landed in America, some landed in Europe. People were being brutally ripped away from their homelands, and ending up in all types of different places around the Americas. And so truly, a lot of slaves don't really know, where they're from. A lot of African or black, majority black countries in the Caribbean, a lot of them don't really truly know where their ancestors, their true ancestors, are actually from in Africa. So this particular man was from Gambia, and supposedly he landed in Haiti, and that's where he tried to rebel, tried to fight, tried to get some revenge, and that's where he met his brutal death. So this poem, it's not a happy poem. It's very vivid. It gives lots of details as to what happened to this African. Yeah, and there's really no hope. This poem does not end with any type of hope. It just basically ends in a place where the only way that you can get out of this type of slavery, the only way that you can survive, well, not really survive, the only way that you can get some relief or some freedom or some liberty, is by dying. So that's the poem. Yeah. So that's all I had to say about this poem. Those are my ideas on this poem. It goes much more into the specifics, ultimately what happened to this African chief, and all the grueling details about this type of oppression that he was underneath, and that ultimately took his life. Yeah. So that's everything. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and/or comment, and I'll see you guys in the next video.